Admiral Kate Morrison had never seen the bridge of the ENS Thunderchild so silent. The massive holographic display dominated the command center, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a mantis and a Persian cat. Its voice carried the kind of condescension that transcended species barriers. "Your attempts at interstellar travel are..." The alien paused, multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "Quaint. The hegemony has watched your progress with great interest, though we find your methods rather primitive." Kate's fingers tightened on the bridge railing, her knuckles white against the polished metal. Behind her, 30 of Earth's finest officers maintained their composure, but she could feel their tension. 6 months of training together had made them more than a crew. They were a family. And right now, someone was insulting their home. As a level 3 civilization, you must understand that there are protocols, the alien continued. The hegemony cannot risk unstable species having free access to interstellar space. Your history of conflict is concerning. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Peterson, the ship's tactical officer, shifted at his station. Kate caught his eye, giving him the slightest shake of her head. Not yet. They'd trained for first contact, but nobody had expected it to be quite so patronizing. Therefore, the alien's voice took on an almost melodic quality. "You have 2 options. Submit to a standard evaluation of your species' worth, or accept quarantine within your solar system. The choice is yours." The bridge crew held their breath. This was humanity's first real contact with alien life, and it had just called them children and threatened to ground them. Kate straightened her uniform, a motion that had become second nature during her 20 years of service. The fabric, made from advanced carbon nanotubes and smart fibers, was probably considered Stone Age technology by the hegemony standards. Just like their ships, their AI, their weapons, everything they'd worked so hard to create. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Naval Ship Thunderchild," she began, her voice steady. "And I speak not just for this ship, but for all of humanity when I say this." She paused, making sure the universal translator was picking up every word. "We don't prove our worth to bullies. We prove their assumptions wrong." The alien's fur bristled visibly. "You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a negotiation." "No," Kate agreed, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth. "It's not. Because Earth doesn't negotiate about its freedom. We've spent our entire history fighting for it, and we're not about to stop because someone with better technology looks down on us." She gestured to Communications Officer Sarah Martinez. "Send the package." The alien's expression shifted as data began streaming to their ship, details of Earth's fleet, not just the Thunderchild, but the dozen other ships already under construction. Their capabilities, their innovations, their unique approaches to space combat. "You'll notice," Kate continued, "that we've developed some interesting solutions to the challenges of space travel. Our ships might not be pretty, but they're tough. Our eye might not be elegant, but they think like we do. And our weapons." She let the sentence hang. The alien's fur had flattened now, its eyes fixed on data streams only it could see. "This is unexpected. Humanity has a saying," Kate said, standing straighter. "Never judge a book by its cover. We may not meet your standards for civilization, but we've learned a few things about survival, about adaptation, about taking what others consider weaknesses and turning them into strengths." The bridge crew stood a little taller with each word. This was why they'd followed her, why they'd volunteered for a mission that could have ended in disaster. Because Kate Morrison never backed down, and she never let anyone define humanity's limits. "So here's our counter-offer," she said, her voice carrying the weight of every human who had ever looked at the stars and dreamed. "The hegemony can either accept Earth as an equal partner in space, or you can try to stop us. Either way, we're going to the stars. The choice is yours." The alien's image flickered as it processed this response. No one had ever challenged the hegemony's authority like this. But then again, they'd never met humans before. Chief Engineer Jack Thompson wiped the grease from his hands as he watched the hegemony delegation approach through the Thunderchild's main engineering bay. Their crystalline environmental suits caught the light, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the utilitarian walls of his domain. And this, their guide, Lieutenant Jessica Hayes, announced with barely concealed pride, is the heart of our ship. The lead delegate, who had introduced himself as First Observer Calix, tilted his mantis-like head. This is most unusual. Where are your quantum harmonics? The psychic interface matrices? Jack couldn't help but smile. He'd spent 15 years developing the systems that surrounded them. And he knew every pipe, every circuit, and every backup to every backup. We do things a bit differently here on Earth, he said, patting the massive central power core. This beauty runs on good old-fashioned nuclear fusion, enhanced with some tricks we picked up along the way. The aliens exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey superiority despite their inhuman features. Fusion? How? Primitive. Primitive gets the job done, Jack replied, leading them deeper into the engineering section. See these modules. They're all independent, self-contained units. If one gets damaged, we can seal it off and route around it. The ship can lose up to 60% of its systems and still function. He pulled up a holographic display, showing the intricate network of redundant systems. We call it the cockroach protocol, because like those little bugs back on Earth, it's really hard to kill. First Observer Calix's antenna twitched, but the efficiency loss must be enormous. Our ships are beautiful, elegant, and probably run at near-perfect efficiency, Jack interrupted, until something goes wrong. We humans have a long history of things going wrong at the worst possible moment. So we plan for it. He led them to a sealed chamber where a massive artificial intelligence core hummed quietly. This is ARIA, Adaptive Response Intelligence Array. She's not just a computer, she's a problem solver. We fed her every engineering challenge, every battlefield innovation, every jury-rigged solution from thousands of years of human history. The aliens' dismissive attitude faltered as they studied the readings. One of them, a junior observer, actually took a step back. It thinks in chaos patterns. She thinks like a human, Jack corrected. Because sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. Sometimes you need to think outside the box, or as we say in engineering, hit it with a wrench until it works. He brought up another display, this one showing the ship's automated repair systems. Hundreds of robotic drones, each no bigger than his palm, stood ready in their charging stations. These little guys can fix almost anything. They're based on Earth insects, ants, bees, termites. They work together, adapt to new problems, and never give up. First Observer Calix's professional demeanor cracked slightly. You model your technology on your planet's primitive life forms. 4 billion years of evolution taught us a few things about survival, Jack said. We're not trying to build perfect ships. We're building ships that survive. He led them to their final stop, the Emergency Control Center. Unlike the sleek bridge above, this was a cramped space filled with manual controls and backup systems. And this is our last line of defense. When everything else fails, we can run the entire ship from here. No quantum computing, no AI assistance, just human ingenuity and good old-fashioned switches and levers. The hegemony delegation had gone silent, their earlier condescension replaced by something that might have been concern. They'd come expecting to find a primitive species playing at space travel. Instead, they'd found a ship that reflected humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn from everything, even their failures. We may not have your advanced technology, Jack said, as he led them out. "But we've got something better. Experience at surviving against the odds. The Thunderchild isn't just a ship. She's a testament to every hard lesson humanity ever learned. And trust me, we're quick learners." As the delegation left, Jack could have sworn he heard one of them mutter something about dangerous primitives. He smiled. They were finally starting to understand. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez's fingers danced across her combat console as the Thunderchild moved through the demonstration course. The hegemony had graciously offered to evaluate Earth's combat readiness, but something about their test coordinator's tone set her combat eyes threat assessment algorithms on edge. "Kaiser," she vocalized to her AI partner, "run those shield harmonics again. Something's off." The AI's response came through her neural link, a technology the hegemony had dismissed as crude. Detecting unusual power fluctuations in the observer vessel. Their weapon systems are active despite diplomatic protocols. Emma's eyes narrowed. 6 years of combat simulations had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every one of them was screaming. "Admiral Morrison." She called out, "Request permission to activate combat protocols." Before Kate could respond, the hegemony vessel's energy signature spiked. Their test coordinator's voice came through with false concern. "Oh my, it seems we're having a minor weapons malfunction. Please stand by." Emma's hands were already moving. "Kaiser, execute combat pattern Delta 7. The Thunderchild's response was instant. While the hegemony expected their accidental weapons discharge to disable the primitive human vessel, they instead witnessed something unprecedented. The ship moved like a prizefighter, weaving away from the energy burst while simultaneously bringing its own weapons online. "Multiple target solutions available," Kaiser reported, his processing speed making the complex calculations seem effortless. "They expected us to react like their simulations. They don't know about the games." Emma allowed herself a tight smile. The hegemony had mocked Earth's primitive combat training, never realizing that centuries of video games had created the perfect training ground for space combat. Every strategy game, every space simulator, every virtual battle had been fed into Caesar's neural network. "Show them what we can do," she commanded. "All points defense online. Let's give them a demo they'll never forget." The Thunderchild's response was beautiful in its complexity. Point defense lasers swatted incoming fire from the sky, while electronic warfare suites, considered obsolete by hegemony standards, played havoc with their targeting systems. Every counter-move had been practiced countless times in virtual space. Impossible. The hegemony coordinator's voice had lost its smug edge. "Your reaction times. Your systems shouldn't be capable of this." Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the channel, cool as steel. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, please demonstrate why we don't appreciate unexpected weapons tests." Emma's grin widened. "Kaiser, show them pattern Omega-3. Full non-lethal loadout." The AI executed the command with perfect precision. The Thunderchild spun on its axis, using its momentum to launch a devastating barrage of electronic warfare pulses. Each burst was calculated to disrupt rather than destroy, leaving the hegemony vessel floating helpless but intact. "Multiple systems failure detected on target vessel," Kaiser reported with what almost sounded like satisfaction. "Their engineers are attempting to adapt, but they're following standard protocols. Shall I show them something new?" Emma watched as the alien ship's elegant crystal arrays tried to reconfigure themselves. "No need to show all our cards today, partner." "Admiral." Kate Morrison stood from her command chair, her voice carrying across all channels. "Hegemony vessel, it seems your weapons malfunction has led to some technical difficulties. Would you like us to send over some of our primitive engineering teams to assist?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the coordinator responded, their voice much subdued. "That won't be necessary, Admiral. We appear to have significantly underestimated your capabilities." Emma exchanged a look with Keezer's holographic avatar. The AI's expression, modeled after ancient Roman generals, showed the same pride she felt. Together, they'd just proven that humanity's approach to combat, a fusion of human intuition and machine precision, was far more formidable than anyone had expected. "Stand down from combat stations," Admiral Morrison ordered, though her next words carried a note of warning. "And remind our hegemony friends that the next malfunction will be treated as an act of war." As the bridge crew relaxed their battle stations, Emma patted her console affectionately. The hegemony had just learned an important lesson. Never mistake humanity's different approach for weakness. They'd been playing war games their entire lives, and now the games were real. Commander James Maverick Mitchell watched the holographic display as his fighter squadron slipped through the dense asteroid field. The hegemony fleet pursuing them had superior technology, better weapons, and more advanced sensors, but they didn't have centuries of atmospheric combat experience, and they certainly didn't have the crazy edge that made human pilots special. "Wildcard Squadron, form up on my 6, he ordered through the neural link. "Remember your training. They're looking for logic, so let's give them chaos." His 12 pilots responded with perfect precision, their small craft weaving between the tumbling rocks like schools of fish. Each fighter was a hybrid of human innovation, smaller than the hegemony's elegant interceptors, but packed with surprises. "Contact," Lieutenant Maria Torres called out. 3 hegemony cruisers entering sensor range. They're using standard search patterns. Maverick grinned inside his neural interface. "Standard is predictable. Time to show them how Earth fights. Execute Operation Hornet's Nest." The squadron split into 4 triads, each group taking position behind different asteroids. The hegemony ships, their crystal hulls gleaming in the starlight, moved forward in a perfect formation. Their sensors swept the asteroid field with methodical precision. "They think we're running," Maverick transmitted to his squad. "Let's change their minds. Torres, light up the party." Maria's fighter released a cloud of metallic chaff. Another primitive technology the hegemony had dismissed. The microscopic particles caught the solar wind, creating an electromagnetic storm that played havoc with the aliens' sophisticated targeting systems. "Now," Maverick called, "hit them from all sides." His pilots erupted from their hidden positions, each triad taking advantage of the asteroid's natural gravity wells to slingshot their fighters at impossible angles. The hegemony ships, their formations perfect for open space combat, found themselves fighting an enemy that treated space like an ocean, full of currents, eddies, and places to hide. "Watch those solar flares," Maverick warned as he led his wing through a particularly dense field. "Remember, every source of energy is a weapon if you use it right." The lesson had come from Earth's naval history, using the environment as a weapon. When his fighters passed through the solar radiation, their shield harmonics changed, amplifying their next volley of energy weapons to devastating effect. "They're trying to predict our pattern," Torres reported, her voice excited. "The AI says they're running combat algorithms based on their previous encounters." "That's their mistake," Maverick replied, rolling his fighter through a gap barely wider than his ship. "We don't use patterns. We use instinct." The hegemony fleet's perfect formation had dissolved into chaos. Their attempts to track the human fighters were stymied by the constantly shifting gravitational fields, the unpredictable solar winds, and the seemingly random movement of their targets. "Squadron, execute Maneuver Liberty 7, Maverick ordered. "Show them why we spent so much time in the simulator." His pilots responded with the kind of coordination that only came from countless hours of practice. Each fighter used the asteroids as cover, popping out to strike before disappearing again. The hegemony's superior weapons were useless if they couldn't get a clean lock. "Sir," Torres called out, "they're falling back. Their formation is breaking." Maverick watched as the crystal ships retreated, their perfect lines shattered by human ingenuity and daring. "Let them go. They just learned something important about humanity. We don't fight fair, we fight to win." As his squadron regrouped, he could almost imagine the reports being sent back to the Hegemony Command. How could a species so new to space combat be so effective? The answer was simple. Humans had been fighting since they could walk, and every lesson, every battle, every victory and defeat had been leading to this moment. "Good work, Wildcards," he transmitted to his team. "Today we proved something important. Space may be their home, but combat, that's been humanity's playground since the beginning." The cheers of his squadron echoed through the neural link, each pilot knowing they'd just written a new chapter in human history. The hegemony had expected an easy victory over primitive warriors. Instead, they'd found that sometimes the old ways of war work just fine among the stars. Tactical Officer Mike Wilson stood before the fleet's strategic command, his holographic display showing the aftermath of their latest engagement. 3 hegemony battlecruisers drifted dead in space, their crystalline hulls intact, but their advanced systems completely paralyzed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd just proven the impossible. "What you're looking at is the result of Operation Blacksmith, our answer to the hegemony's technological superiority." Admiral Morrison leaned forward in her chair, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Tell us how you did it, Mike." He gestured, and the hologram shifted to show the battle formation. The hegemony relies on quantum-linked targeting systems and psychic interfaces, very advanced, very elegant, and very vulnerable to what they consider obsolete technology. The display zoomed in on one of his modified destroyers. "We took our old electronic warfare suites, technology they don't even bother defending against, and combined them with traditional kinetic weapons. While they were busy protecting against energy weapons, we hit them with good old-fashioned railguns and EMPs." Captain Ryan Brooks, commander of the 3rd Battle Group, whistled blow. "They never saw it coming, did they?" "Better than that," Mike replied, highlighting several key points in the battle replay. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and plasma attacks, but we used gravitational slingshots to accelerate our kinetic rounds beyond their ability to track. By the time their systems registered the threat, it was too late." The hologram showed the moment of impact. Tungsten rods moving at a fraction of light speed, their trajectories bent by careful use of gravity wells and solar winds. The hegemony ship's shields had flared brilliantly, but the physical impact had disrupted their delicate crystal matrices. "But the real beauty," Mike continued, his eyes lighting up, "was the second phase. Lieutenant Rodriguez's combat AI helped us time our EMP bursts perfectly. When their systems tried to reconfigure after the kinetic hits, we shut them down." Admiral Morrison finished, understanding dawning on her face. "Because they were already adapting to one threat. They were completely vulnerable to another," Mike confirmed. "The hegemony has forgotten something important about combat. Sometimes, the simplest solution is the most effective." He brought up another display, this one showing the energy readings from the disabled ships. "Their crew is fine. Their life support runs on different systems, but every weapon, every fancy targeting computer, every quantum-enhanced battle computer is dead in the water." The room was silent for a moment as the implications sank in. Humanity had just proven that their primitive technology could not only stand up to the hegemony's best ships, but could actually defeat them without destroying them. "There's more," Mike said, pulling up a new tactical display. "We've been analyzing their response patterns. Every time we use a new tactic, they adapt, but they do it in predictable ways. Their training is too rigid, too focused on perfect execution. They don't know how to handle an enemy that keeps changing the rules. Admiral Morrison stood, her expression both proud and determined. How long until they figure out countermeasures? That's the best part, Mike replied with a grin. They'd have to completely redesign their ships. Their entire technological approach is based on crystalline computing and quantum networks. They can't just patch this vulnerability. It's built into the very core of their systems. He zoomed out the display to show the larger strategic picture. We don't need to match their technology. We just need to keep being unpredictable, keep using what they consider obsolete in ways they never expected. Every time they adapt to one tactic, we switch to another. The Admiral nodded, understanding the full implications. They've spent centuries perfecting their technology, but they've forgotten the basics of warfare. And now that oversight is coming back to haunt them. Exactly, Mike said, his voice firm. They built their ships to be perfect. We built ours to win. Captain Alexandra Alex Walker stood in the United Earth Command Center, watching as hundreds of red dots appeared on the global holographic display. The hegemony's ultimatum had been clear: submit or face extinction. Their massive fleet was already moving through the outer solar system, expecting to find a primitive world cowering in fear. Status report on Operation Hidden Hand, she called out, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Lieutenant Commander Robert Bobby Taylor responded from his station, a hint of pride in his voice. The last shipyard in the Antarctic base just came online. Asian Confederation reports all lunar facilities are at full production. European Union's asteroid mining operations have been converted to weapons manufacturing. Alex allowed herself a small smile. For years, Earth's nations had maintained a public face of limited space capability, while secretly preparing for exactly this scenario. The hegemony's threats had finally united humanity in a way that no internal crisis ever could. "Show me the Chinese Deep Space Initiative," she ordered, and the display shifted to show a massive underground complex beneath the Gobi Desert. Dozens of warships, built in secret over the past decade, were rising from hidden bunkers. Russian Federation reports their Siberian fleet is ready for launch. Body added, African Alliance's Sahara base is bringing their ships online now. South American Confederation, by God, they've got twice the number we expected. The display kept updating as more hidden facilities revealed themselves. Humanity had learned long ago not to keep all their eggs in one basket, or their ships in one shipyard. Every major nation, and many smaller ones, had been quietly preparing their own defense forces. "Sir," a young officer called out. "Message from the Indian Ocean Command. They're launching the Devastator-class ships now." Alex watched as the massive vessels emerged from the depths. While the Thunderchild had been Earth's public face in space, these behemoths had been built in secret, underwater assembly plants hidden from prying eyes. Each one carried enough firepower to challenge a hegemony battle group. "Time to show our hand," she announced, opening a global channel. "All commands, this is Captain Walker. Execute Protocol Unity. I say again, execute Protocol Unity." The response was immediate and overwhelming. From every corner of the globe, from hidden bases on the moon, from asteroid facilities and underwater shipyards, humanity's real space fleet emerged. Thousands of ships, each built with the same philosophy that had made the Thunderchild so formidable. Message from Admiral Morrison on the Thunderchild, Bobby reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. She says, "Well done, Earth. Now let's show them what unity really means." The hegemony's advanced scouts had already detected the massive launch. Their communications, intercepted by Earth's intelligence networks, showed their growing panic as they realized the truth. They had expected to find a single fleet. Instead, they found a planet armed to the teeth. Tactical analysis coming in, another officer called out. The hegemony fleet is adjusting their formation. They're falling back to defensive positions. Alex nodded grimly. They're finally learning. Humanity doesn't just roll over and die. We prepare, we adapt, and we fight back. She watched as the combined Earth fleet formed up, ships from every nation moving into position with perfect coordination. Years of joint training exercises, conducted in secret, were paying off. All fleet commands report ready, Body announced. We're showing over 3,000 combat-capable vessels, plus support ships and fighters. Send a message to the hegemony, Alex ordered, her voice carrying the weight of every human who had ever dreamed of the stars. Tell them, this is humanity's response to your ultimatum. We will not be confined. We will not be controlled. And we will not be underestimated ever again. As the message was transmitted, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The hegemony had thought they were dealing with a primitive species, making its first steps into space. Instead, they had awakened a giant, one that had been preparing for this day for a very long time. Fleet Admiral David Harrison stood on the bridge of the EN's Valiant, his expression calm despite the massive hegemony armada arrayed before him. Their crystal ships formed a perfect geometric pattern that stretched across space, beautiful and deadly and predictable. Status on all battle groups, he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 30 years of naval service. Commander Lisa Anderson responded from her tactical station. All ships report ready, sir. The Russians have their stealth squadrons in position. Chinese electromagnetic warfare units are standing by. European kinetic strike groups are loaded and targeting. David nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The hegemony had brought their main fleet, expecting to crush Earth's resistance with overwhelming force. They still didn't understand what they were facing. Open channel to all Earth forces, he ordered. It's time to show them why you don't corner humanity. The channel crackled to life as he addressed the combined fleet. This is Fleet Admiral Harrison. For centuries, humanity has dreamed of the stars. We've written stories about this moment, imagined first contact, hoped for peaceful exchange of knowledge. Instead, we found bullies who think technological superiority equals destiny. He paused, watching as his forces moved into position. But we've learned something they haven't. True strength isn't about having the best technology. It's about using what you have in ways your enemy never expects. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. The battle began not with a dramatic charge, but with silence. The Russian stealth ships, using technology derived from decades of submarine warfare, slipped through the hegemony's sensor net. Their presence was revealed only when they launched their modified nuclear torpedoes, not at the enemy ships, but at carefully calculated points in space. Detonation in 3, 2, 1. Lisa counted down. The nuclear explosions created massive electromagnetic pulses, but more importantly, they generated artificial gravity wells. The hegemony's perfect formation was suddenly torn apart as their ships were pulled in multiple directions. Chinese EW units, you're up, David commanded. Show them why we kept the primitive radio technology. As the alien fleet struggled to regroup, they were hit with a barrage of electronic warfare, unlike anything they'd prepared for. Their quantum communications networks, designed to be unhackable, were useless against simple signal jamming. Their psychic interfaces, overwhelmed by the chaos, began to fail. Multiple hegemony ships reporting system failures, Lisa announced. Their formation is breaking apart. They're trying to adapt, but their responses are uncoordinated. David allowed himself a grim smile. Now for the old-school approach. All kinetic strike groups. Execute Pattern Sierra 9. The European battle groups unleashed their payload. Thousands of tungsten rods, accelerated to relativistic speeds. The hegemony shields, designed to handle energy weapons, Might as well have been tissue paper against the physical impact. "Sir," Lisa called out. "They're attempting to reform their lines using secondary systems. Analyzing their pattern now." "No need," David replied. "They're following their standard combat doctrine. And that's exactly what we wanted. All ships, execute Operation Checkmate." The trap was sprung. As the hegemony forces moved to their backup formation, they found themselves surrounded. The African Alliance's hypervelocity fighters struck from above, while the South American Confederation's EMP platforms attacked from below. The Indian Ocean Fleet's massive rail guns opened fire, their synchronized volleys creating a kill box from which there was no escape. "Enemy fleet is in disarray," Lisa reported, pride evident in her voice. "Multiple ships are powering down to prevent core breaches. Others are. They're retreating, sir." David watched as the once mighty hegemony armada broke apart. Their perfect formations had been shattered, their superior technology rendered useless by human ingenuity and unconventional tactics. "Send to all ships," he ordered. "Well done, humanity. We just proved something the hegemony never understood. Space combat isn't about who has the best ships. It's about who has the best soldiers, the best tactics, and the will to use them." As the remaining enemy vessels fled, David knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had just announced its presence in the most emphatic way possible, not as primitives playing at space combat, but as a force to be reckoned with. Lieutenant General Rachel Summers walked into the Hegemony Council chamber, her dress uniform drawing sharp contrast against the crystalline architecture. The massive hall was filled with representatives from 100 spacefaring species, all gathered to witness something unprecedented. A primitive race dictating terms to the galactic powers. "The terms of our agreement are simple," she announced, her voice carrying through the chamber without technological assistance. "Earth will join the galactic community as a full member, with all rights and privileges. Our technology will remain our own, and our methods will not be questioned." The Grand Arbiter, a towering figure of living crystal, shifted uncomfortably. "Your methods are unorthodox. The defeat of our main battle fleet has caused considerable concern among council members." Rachel smiled, an expression that carried both warmth and warning. "That's precisely why we're here. Humanity has demonstrated something the hegemony needed to learn. True strength isn't about having the most advanced technology. It's about how you use what you have." She gestured, and a holographic display activated, showing footage from the recent battles. "Your ships are beautiful, your technology magnificent. But you forgot the fundamental principles of warfare and innovation. You became so focused on perfection that you lost sight of practicality." The chamber erupted in murmurs as they watched Earth's forces in action. The Russian stealth ships moving like ghosts, the Chinese electronic warfare platforms disrupting advanced networks with basic principles, the combined fleet moving with a flexibility that made their primitive technology dance around superior forces. "But more importantly," Rachel continued, "you forgot that necessity is the mother of innovation. Every piece of technology we use, every tactic we employ, was born from struggle and survival. We didn't have the luxury of perfect solutions. We had to make do with what worked." She paused, making eye contact with various council members. "That's what we offer the hegemony now. Not just alliance, but perspective. Your civilization has achieved wonders, but you've stagnated. You've forgotten how to think outside your perfect crystal boxes." The Grand Arbiter's voice carried a note of curiosity now. "And you believe your methods could benefit the hegemony?" "We know they can," Rachel replied. "Already, your military analysts are studying our tactics. Your engineers are looking at our crude solutions with new eyes. We've shown you that there's more than one path to the stars." She brought up new images, the Thunderchild's modular design, the adaptive AI systems, the integration of natural principles into military strategy. Earth doesn't want to dominate the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, and yes, help protect it. But we'll do it our way." The council chamber had gone silent, every representative considering the implications. A race they'd dismissed as primitive had not only defeated their best forces, but was now offering to help them grow beyond their self-imposed limitations. "Our terms also include a new approach to first contact," Rachel added. "No more ultimatums. No more demands for proof of worth. Every species deserves the chance to reach the stars in their own way, at their own pace." The Grand Arbiter rose, its crystalline form catching the light. "You have given us much to consider, Lieutenant General Summers. The Council will need time to—" "Time is one thing we're happy to give," she interrupted politely but firmly. "But our terms remain non-negotiable. Earth has earned its place among the stars, not through the beauty of our technology, but through the strength of our spirit and the power of our innovation." As she finished speaking, the chamber erupted in discussion. Species that had never questioned the hegemony's methods were now seeing new possibilities. The age of perfect, crystalline order was ending, replaced by something more dynamic, more adaptable, more human. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended all along.